HR laughed at Black Man's resume, until he took the stage and changed everything. Andre Harris sat in the corner of the small coffee shop. His laptop open, fingers motionless on the keyboard. Outside, the cold Chicago wind swept leaves across the sidewalk. People bundled in coats and scarves rushing by without a glance. Inside, the world was still, silent, except for the low hum of conversations and the hiss of the espresso machine. Andre stared at the email on his screen. "We regret to inform you that your application has not been selected for further consideration." It was the 6th rejection that week. He leaned back, rubbed his eyes, and exhaled slowly. 35 years old, a former Army signal technician. A man who had taught himself JavaScript, Python, C++, machine learning, and server architecture, all from online courses, YouTube videos, and open-source projects. And yet, he couldn't even land a phone screening. He remembered what the recruiter said during the only interview he had managed to secure a month ago. She'd smiled politely and asked, "So, you're self-taught? That's unique." He knew what that meant. Not Ivy League, no FAANG internships, no Silicon Valley connections, no pedigree. Andre had once believed in the meritocracy. He thought that talent, hard work, and resilience would be enough. But resumes, apparently, needed more polish than truth. He packed up his things and headed out. The cold slapped his face like a reminder. You're not welcome here. At least not yet. Back in his one-bedroom apartment on the south side, Andre sat on his worn-down sofa. Still wearing his jacket, he stared at his laptop again, opened a blank document, and typed out the resume he'd been submitting. Name: Andre Harris. Education: self-taught. Experience: freelance development for local businesses. Projects: built a logistics tracker for a community food bank. Optimized warehouse operations for a veterans shelter. Skills: Python, Django, JavaScript, React, Docker, AWS. It wasn't fancy, but it was real. He had built things that worked. That mattered. That changed lives, even if they weren't scalable or buzzword-filled. He sat in silence, wondering what they saw when they looked at his name. Andre Harris, Black man, Chicago. No degree, no LinkedIn recommendations from someone at Google. Later that week, at a local job fair, Andre stood in line at the tech booth of a promising startup. It wasn't his dream company, but it was something. He had printed his resume on clean white paper, crisp and precise. In front of him, two men chatted casually. One wore a blazer and startup hoodie. The other had a lanyard that read, HR, Talento.io. Andre didn't mean to listen in. He just heard it. "Hey, check this out," the HR guy said, chuckling as he held up a paper. This guy literally wrote, self-taught, in the skills section. No degree, no boot camp, just vibes. The other man laughed. Does he expect us to take that seriously? Andre froze. His chest tightened. Wait, the HR guy continued, flipping through the pages. Warehouse tracking? Food bank app? What is this? A charity pitch or a tech resume? They laughed again. Andre stepped out of the line. Outside, the sun had disappeared behind gray clouds. He found a bench nearby and sat down, the resume still in his hand. He looked at it, then slowly, deliberately, crumpled it. That night, Andre didn't sleep. He lay on the couch, eyes open, heart pounding, not with anger, at least not the usual kind. It was something deeper, the kind of pain you don't cry about because it's not a surprise. Just a confirmation. But as the darkness stretched into dawn, something shifted. If he couldn't break into the system, maybe he could build something outside it. Something for people like him. He opened his laptop. The first thing he typed was a name, Code for Hope. That would be the blog. The mission. The beginning. Over the next few weeks, Andre poured everything into it. He wrote about syntax, algorithms, web APIs, database optimization. But he also wrote about the nights he coded by flashlight in his car when rent was late. He wrote about the day his mother was laid off because her boss didn't think a black woman belonged in the front office. He wrote about learning recursion while babysitting his sister's 2 kids. He wrote the truth. People started to find it. A few likes, a few shares, a comment from a young man in Detroit. Bro, I thought I was the only one. This changed everything for me. Another from a single mom in Atlanta. I bookmarked your tutorial. I finally understood what a callback function is. Thank you. Andre kept it anonymous. He didn't want anyone judging him by his name, his voice, or his face. Just the code, just the story. Each post ended the same way. Code for Hope. On Saturdays, he would take his old laptop to the public library and hold informal coding sessions. He didn't charge. He couldn't afford a space. But kids came anyway. Teenagers with cracked phones. Men just out of prison. Women tired of being told they were too old to learn tech. Andre didn't care about buzzwords. He taught them how to build. From scratch. HTML first. Then CSS. Then JS. Step by step. He showed them how to host a website for free. How to write a script that pulled weather data. How to clean CSVs and train a basic model. He taught like a man on fire. He still applied to jobs. Still faced silence. But the sting faded. Not because it didn't hurt, but because he was building something no rejection could erase. At night, Andre would sit on his fire escape with a notebook and write new blog ideas. He started recording short screencasts and uploading them to YouTube under the Code for Hope name. No camera, just his voice. It reached further than he imagined. One evening, his inbox pinged. Subject: We'd love to feature Code for Hope at our upcoming Tech for Change Summit. He stared at it for a long time. Then, slowly, he smiled. For the first time in years. Andre felt like maybe, just maybe, he didn't need the gatekeeper's permission to walk through a door. He was building his own. And people were listening. The numbers didn't lie. 3 months after launching the Code for Hope blog, Andre stared at the analytics dashboard and saw what he never expected. Over 87,000 views. His free tutorials were being shared in Reddit threads, WhatsApp groups, community college forums, even local tech meetups. He received emails from ex-cons trying to rebuild their lives, high schoolers looking for an alternative to college debt, and single parents squeezing in an hour of coding between shifts. Every message was a spark in the dark. You made me believe I'm not dumb. I just landed my first freelance gig. Thanks to your API video. My daughter's building her first website. I never thought I'd see her this confident. Andre read every word. Some messages made him laugh. Some made him cry. But all of them reminded him why he started. The name, Code for Hope, started to carry weight. Not in glossy magazines or TED Talks. But in living rooms. In basements. In shelters. In barbershops. In places where resumes didn't matter but change was everything. He kept his identity secret. Not because he was afraid, but because he didn't want the focus to shift. He knew what people saw when they saw him. And he knew how quickly the world dismissed stories that didn't come from the right package. So he remained anonymous. Just a voice. Just a screen. Just the code. Until one day, his inbox chimed with a subject line that didn't feel real. Invitation. Tech for Change Summit, keynote inquiry. He clicked, expecting spam. But it wasn't. The email came from the director of a major nonprofit that hosted one of the largest annual technology conferences in the Midwest, Tech for Change. The kind of summit where CEOs, VCs, engineers, activists, and students came together to discuss how tech could serve people, not just profit. They wanted Code for Hope to be a featured speaker. I've been following your blog for months. The email read, "You've reached people we couldn't with our entire marketing budget. The community trusts you. You're proof that access to knowledge can be a revolution. Please, we'd be honored if you would speak." Andre froze. He reread the message 5 times. A part of him wanted to delete it and pretend it never arrived. Speak? In public? He had never done that. Never revealed himself. The blog was his shield. His mask. His distance from the judgments he knew would come if they saw the man behind the keyboard. He closed his laptop and walked outside. The Chicago air was heavy that night. Thick with the weight of memory. He sat on the stoop, watching cars pass in silence. A few kids rode by on bikes. Laughing. Fearless. He remembered being that age. Remembered how quick the world was to remind him of his place. He remembered teachers saying he was too disruptive when he was just asking questions. Remembered the cop who pushed him against a wall for walking too fast. Remembered the look in his mother's eyes when she said, "They'll always see you as a threat before they see you as human. So you'll have to be twice as good." And even then, he didn't want to be a face. But something inside him whispered, "Maybe it's time." He emailed back, I will consider speaking at the summit, on one condition. I want to remain anonymous until the moment I step on stage. No pre-event photos. No name. No background. Just Code for Hope. Until then, I am just a voice." The nonprofit agreed. As the date approached, they sent him the event details, venue, schedule, security access, and the list of participating sponsors and companies. He scanned it idly, until one name made his heart skip. Talento.io, the startup that laughed at his resume. The HR guy, the chuckling voice. He sat still, the cursor blinking on the screen like a heartbeat. He remembered every syllable of that conversation at the job fair. He considered backing out. What if they recognized him? What if someone from the audience said something? What if his moment to speak turned into their moment to humiliate? But then he thought of a comment left on his last blog post. "My son sees you as a hero. I want you to know that." He closed the email, then opened his notebook. Keynote outline: How Code Saved My Life. The Myth of Meritocracy. Real Skills versus Perceived Value. Teaching the Invisible. Why We Build in the Shadows. The summit took place at a sprawling convention center in downtown Chicago. The halls buzzed with energy, thousands of attendees. Glowing LED displays. Booths giving away tote bags and USB drives. Big names, big talks, but everyone kept asking one question. "Have you heard? Code for Hope is speaking." Andre entered through a side door. Hoodie up, escorted by a summit volunteer who had no idea who he was. His name tag simply read Speaker #7, Reserved Identity. No one looked twice. Backstage, he sat in the green room, surrounded by polished professionals rehearsing talking points and adjusting their lapel mics. No one spoke to him. No one even asked who he was. That was fine. He preferred silence. The main stage was packed. Rows and rows of people. High school students in matching shirts. Recruiters in dress shoes. Engineers with laptops open. Executives checking their schedules. A massive screen displayed a single line in bold text. Coming up next, CODE for HOPE. Backstage, the event coordinator checked her clipboard and smiled. "You ready?" she asked. Andre nodded once. "Still want to stay anonymous till you're up there?" "Yes." "Okay," she whispered. "When we announce you, the spotlight will hit center stage. Just walk into it." He closed his eyes. He heard the intro music. He heard the crowd quiet. He heard the MC's voice booming. "Please welcome to the stage, a teacher, a coder, a leader, and a symbol of what's possible when knowledge is shared without permission. You know them as Code for Hope." Applause. Loud, roaring. He stepped out. The lights hit him, blinding, warm. For the first time, Andre Harris walked into the light not as an applicant, not as a rejected resume, not as a man judged by his past or by his skin, but as a voice. And the voice was about to speak. He stood behind the curtain, heart thudding like war drums in his chest. The applause outside hadn't died down yet, but the deeper noise was within him, memories rising. Uninvited, as the spotlight waited just a few feet away, Andre closed his eyes, and suddenly, he wasn't 35 anymore. He was 8. Standing in the kitchen of their tiny 2-bedroom apartment in Bronzeville. He remembered the smell of overcooked rice, the sound of the city bleeding through cracked windows, and his mother, strong, sharp-eyed, her back bent over the sink. She had just come home early from work, shoulders tight, silence clinging to her like shame. He asked her what was wrong. She hesitated, then she finally said it, almost too softly. "They let me go." He didn't understand. Why? She didn't cry, she didn't scream, but her hands trembled as she folded a dish towel that didn't need folding. "They said I didn't look professional enough to be the front face of the office." She said, "I wore the same clothes last week." And no one said a thing. He didn't understand what it meant then. But he does now. It wasn't about her clothes. It was never about the clothes. He remembered sitting on the floor that night as she quietly made a peanut butter sandwich for dinner, slicing it in two and giving him the bigger half. She went to bed hungry so he wouldn't. And then there was Marcus, his older brother. The strongest person Andre had ever known. Charismatic, brilliant, could break down any machine and put it back together like a magician. Marcus once interviewed for an entry-level tech job at a warehouse. They never called him back. Later, Andre overheard their uncle say, "They probably saw that name. Figured he was trouble. Marcus didn't argue. He just smiled, tossed the rejection letter in the trash, and said, "Guess I'll build my own thing." Then, he never did, not because he couldn't, but because he was exhausted. Exhausted from being invisible, or worse, only visible as a threat. Andre shook his head. The curtain swayed as someone entered the backstage area, a woman with a clipboard and headset. Rushing past, muttering into her mic, "HR panels after this. Just got confirmation Talento's representative is in the house. She'll speak second." Andre's body tensed. Talento? The name tasted like acid in his mouth. The woman turned, distracted. "Yeah, some exec, recruiting angle or something. I don't know. I just cue the slides." She disappeared down the hall before he could say anything more. He stood still. Suddenly, the room felt smaller, hotter. That same feeling he had when he first heard them laugh at his resume. That same fire in his chest. That same voice that whispered, "You don't belong here." They'll laugh again. What if they see your face and remember the joke? He stared at the stage entrance. Just a few more seconds, and he'd be out there. Fully visible. No hiding behind the name anymore. Code 4 Hope would no longer be a myth. It would be him. Andre Harris. Black. No degree. Former janitor. Veteran. Self-taught. Would that be enough? Would it ever be enough? He looked down at his hands. Calloused. Steady. The same hands that held rifles in war. Washed dishes in silence. Typed lines of code at 2 a.m. And taught strangers how to build futures for free. Still shaking, he turned, half ready to walk away. Just leave. He didn't owe anyone anything. Not his story. Not his pain. Not this moment. Then, he caught a glimpse through a gap in the curtain. Second row, slightly left of center. A young boy. Couldn't have been more than 12. Skin like his. Sitting up straight, feet barely touching the floor. Hands folded over a worn-out composition notebook. His eyes wide, alert, focused, waiting. Andre stared. That boy didn't come here for buzzwords. He didn't come here for CEOs or panels or free pens at the sponsor booths. He came for someone like him. And if Andre left now, what message would that send? He'd become another silence, another missing voice, another ghost in the crowd. The boy shifted forward in his seat, eyes fixed on the stage. Andre took a breath. It wasn't about Talento. It wasn't even about the HR rep. It was about every person who was told no before they even opened their mouth. It was about his mother. About Marcus. About the thousands who wrote to him saying they didn't think they belonged, until they read his words. And now, they were listening for his voice. He clenched his fists once. Then released them. The shaking stopped. Someone called out, "You're up in 10 seconds. Andre nodded. He stepped forward slowly. Into the wings. The curtain brushed his arm like a whisper. Then the voice of the host boomed again. "The moment you've all been waiting for. Code 4 Hope." The audience erupted. Andre Harris, once mocked for his resume, walked out into the light. And this time, no one laughed. They listened. The room quieted. Just moments earlier, the crowd had cheered at the introduction of Code 4 Hope, the anonymous voice who had inspired thousands with his online lessons. His clear, patient code explanations, his raw honesty. They expected a rock star, a genius from Silicon Valley. Maybe a young white man with hoodies and a tech startup. Instead, a tall black man in a plain button-up and slacks walked slowly into the light. No logo, no flashy slides, just him. Some whispered, a few gasped quietly. Then silence, thick and charged. In the fourth row, Anna Caldwell, senior HR officer at Talento, froze in her seat. It was him, Andre Harris, the resume she had laughed at with her colleagues 6 months ago. The one with self-taught scribbled under skills. The one that didn't even list a degree. She remembered forwarding it to another recruiter with a laughing emoji. Bold of him to apply here, tears of joy. She hadn't thought of him again. Until now. Andre stood at center stage. Hands clasped lightly in front of him. Eyes scanning the audience. He didn't need a microphone. It was already clipped to his collar. He took a breath. "I'm guessing this isn't what most of you expected," he said gently. "A lot of people imagine Code 4 Hope as a brand. Or a company. Or maybe a team of elite engineers from Ivy League schools." A few nervous chuckles rippled across the room. "I'm not from Stanford," he continued. "I've never worked at Google. I didn't go to MIT. I've never even set foot on a college campus unless I was mopping the floors there. Now the room was fully still. Andre's voice didn't shake. But I did serve in Afghanistan. I did clean toilets in downtown Chicago while watching coding tutorials on a broken phone during my lunch breaks. I did sleep in my car the first year I tried to teach myself software development, not because it was noble, but because it was that or go hungry. He paused. Some in the crowd shifted in their seats. I started Code for Hope under an anonymous name because I knew, if I used my real face, my real story, it might not be taken seriously. Some people hear the word self-taught and laugh. Some people hear a voice like mine and assume I'm the janitor. A nervous rustle again. Anna Caldwell looked down at her hands. Andre continued, eyes calm, voice even. But I didn't build Code for Hope for approval. I built it for survival. And when people started writing me, saying, I live in public housing and never thought I could write a line of code, or my school has no computers but your videos helped me get my first freelance job, I realized, this isn't just about me. His voice softened. It's about access. It's about the idea that genius doesn't live in one zip code. Talent doesn't only wear Patagonia vests and drink oat milk lattes. Sometimes talent wears dollar store sneakers and types on library keyboards. Now heads were nodding. I believe technology can liberate people. That it should belong to everyone, not just the rich. Not just the connected. Not just the ones who can afford $10,000 for a boot camp. He stepped forward slightly. If you've ever looked at a resume and laughed before reading it. If you've ever seen someone's name and made a decision before shaking their hand. Know this. You're not just denying them a job. You're denying yourself the chance to work with someone who had to be twice as good just to stand where you are. A quiet tear rolled down the cheek of a young woman in the front row. An older man in a tailored suit leaned forward, elbows on his knees, listening like a child hearing truth for the first time. Andre let the silence breathe. Then he smiled, small but undeniable. I'm not here to shame anyone. I'm here to ask, what could our industry look like if we stopped gatekeeping? And started opening doors? He looked toward the edge of the stage, where the boy from before still sat. Hands clutching his notebook, eyes wide. Andre nodded at him. I know there's another kid out there right now, maybe in this room, who thinks he doesn't belong in tech because nobody looks like him. I'm here to say, you do. You always have. There was no clapping yet. Only stillness. Then a single pair of hands began to applaud. Then more. Then louder. Within seconds, the hall erupted, thunderous, sustained, rising like a wave and washing over the stage. People stood. Some clapped with both hands over their heads. Some wiped their eyes. Anna Caldwell did neither. She just sat, frozen, and humiliated. She hadn't just misjudged Andre Harris. She had helped build the wall he was tearing down. Then, from the far left wing, someone stepped onto the stage. A man in a light gray suit. Silver hair. Calm confidence. He walked toward Andre with purpose and took the mic from the host. I wasn't planning to speak today, he said into the mic. But I'm not going to let this moment pass. He turned to Andre. My name is Thomas Rayburn. I'm a founding partner at Halcyon Capital. We've backed some of the most successful education and tech ventures in this country. I've seen hundreds of founders pitch over the years, and I've never seen anyone move an audience like you just did. Andre said nothing, eyes cautious. Thomas turned back to the audience. Mr. Harris didn't ask for funding. He didn't come here to pitch. But I'd like to make him an offer anyway. He looked Andre straight in the eyes. How would you feel about launching a full-time tech academy, your way? Your rules, to train the next generation of coders from the neighborhoods that get left behind? The room held its breath. Thomas raised his hand slightly. I'll fund the first $2 million myself. Gasps. Applause began again, this time sharper. Wilder. As the realization sank in. Andre Harris had just stepped onto this stage as a forgotten name on a resume. And now, he was being offered a future that would rewrite the system. He didn't speak immediately. But when he did, his voice was soft. I accept, he said, but only if it stays free for those who can't afford it. Thomas smiled. That's the idea. The crowd rose again. But Andre didn't bask in it. His eyes drifted once more to the boy in the second row. Still watching. Still dreaming. And Andre smiled. Because for the first time, he knew, he wasn't just changing minds. He was changing futures. A week later, Andre Harris couldn't walk down the street without someone stopping him. Not for autographs, not for selfies, but for something deeper, a hand on his shoulder. A whispered thank you, a tearful hug from a stranger who had seen him speak in. For the first time in years, believed again in something. His inbox exploded, thousands of messages, emails from parents, teachers, veterans, single moms, teenagers who had failed algebra and now believed maybe, just maybe, there was still a path for them. And not all the emails were from fans. One came from Talento, the tech firm that had laughed at his resume. The subject line, a sincere apology and a proposal. He opened it, read the first few lines, and stopped halfway. They wanted to publicly acknowledge their mistake, commend his resilience and brilliance, and, naturally, offer him a high-level position. 6 figures, benefits, perks. Andre didn't reply. He didn't need to. His silence was louder than their email. He didn't need validation from the same system that once discarded him. He had already found something better. Hope, blank, underscore, blank. 2 months later, the Hope Code Academy opened its doors in a renovated brick building on the south side of Chicago, the same neighborhood Andre grew up in. Dodging gunshots, skipping meals, walking past people who told him coding was something rich white kids do. Now, inside those same streets, kids with second-hand Chromebooks were building apps that helped their communities, learning Python while their parents sat in job readiness classes 2 doors down. Andre hired instructors from the very neighborhoods the tech world ignored. He made sure no one paid a cent. No tuition, no uniforms, no interviews meant to filter for culture fit. The only requirement, show up and try. He turned down offers from venture capitalists who wanted equity. He refused to name the academy after himself, despite suggestions from donors. It's not about me, he told the board. It's about what comes next. Blank, underscore, blank. Media attention followed. Podcasts, documentaries, features in Wired, Forbes, The Atlantic. They called him the self-taught savior. The anti-resume revolution. The man who made Silicon Valley look in the mirror. Andre ignored the noise. He spent his days sitting in the back of classrooms, helping students debug their code, walking past rows of desks where young minds whispered, "Is this right?" and older ones whispered, "I didn't think I could ever do this." On weekends, he taught a veterans-only class, where he wore a simple hoodie and reminded everyone in the room that discipline doesn't need a diploma to shine. And yet, for all the awards and interviews and headlines, Andre never forgot the moment that changed everything. The stage, the silence before he spoke, and the boy, blank, underscore, blank. It was on a gray Saturday afternoon, long after the ribbon cutting and speeches, when Andre was cleaning up a classroom, whiteboard still smeared with half-finished pseudocode, that he heard a voice behind him. "Mr. Harris?" He turned. There stood the boy from the audience. Same eyes, same quiet intensity, a little taller now, holding a backpack and a notebook that looked like it had seen better days. Andre smiled. "Malik, right?" The boy nodded, eyes wide. Andre set down the marker in his hand and walked over. "I saw you in the crowd that day," he said. "You looked like you were holding the whole world in." "I was," Malik whispered. Then, louder, "I thought people like me weren't supposed to be on stages like that." Andre knelt slightly, meeting him eye to eye. "I used to think the same thing." There was a pause. Malik looked down, then back up. "Do you think I could ever be like you?" Andre shook his head slowly. "But not in denial. Not like me," he said gently. "Better." Malik's lip quivered. "Chu oi," he said, softly, shyly, a blend of affection and reverence. "Chao tuong noi nu chao se kong bao gio duok buok len san kao du." Andre looked at him, really looked at him, and smiled with something ancient and deep behind his eyes. "Chao se kong kai buok len," he said quietly. "Chao se zai luon kai san kao." Malik blinked, as if something inside him had just been unlocked. And it had. A future. A vision. A promise. Andre placed a hand on Malik's shoulder. "Come back Monday," he said. "Class starts at 9. Malik clutched his notebook tighter. And smiled. Blank. Underscore. Blank. That night, as Andre walked home under the pale gold streetlights of Chicago, He thought about how far he'd come. Not in miles, but in meaning. Once, he had written code to escape hunger. Now, he wrote it so others could escape hopelessness. Once, he had been laughed at by an HR department for having nothing on paper. Now, he was teaching kids to write their own future, no paper needed. And as the wind brushed past him, carrying the sounds of the city, he realized something else. That stage, the one that changed everything, wasn't the end of his journey. It was just the first brick. And he was building something that couldn't be denied. Not by laughter. Not by racism. Not by any system designed to say no. He was building hope. One line of code at a time. Thank you for listening. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs hope today. Until next time, stay kind. Stay strong. And never let anyone tell you where you don't belong.